What I've done today is put together 3 panelists who do more interviewing in a week than hopefully you'll do in a lifetime. And they see the ins and the outs and the pros and the cons of how to interview, what people do that is absolute best practice and what some people do that is absolute worst practice. So we're going to start first of all by saying, how many of you have your business cards with you tonight? Okay, so if you have your business card with you tonight, which you all should have your business cards with you tonight, so this is the first lesson of the night. If you have your business card with you tonight, you're going to be entered into a raffle to win 2 tickets to opening day. And if you don't have your business cards with you tonight, if you don't have your business cards with you tonight, there's no writing on paper, there's no saying, I forgot my business cards, there's no saying anything. It's a lost opportunity.
That's the Egyptian business card counts? Or
Yep. It has to be, oh, you can have any language. I'm all about the multicultural, so it can be any business card. But I think this is a good way to kick off the event because you have to start to think this way. You have to think this is a networking opportunity. How polished do I look? How professional am I? Because very soon, how many of you are graduating seniors or have graduated? So the majority of you. So now you have to start thinking, you have to stop thinking like students, I guess is the key. And you have to start thinking like Red Sox fans, because one of you is going to win 2 tickets for opening day. So what we're going to do is you can start, if you want to just start, or actually, you know what, I'll leave here and just throw them all in. We didn't bring a hat, so we should have brought a Red Sox hat.
What if we have 2 different kinds of business cards?
Put your favorite in. You can't double dip, so you can only put your put your favorite in. So if I can get you all focused again, and we'll do the drawing at the end of the event. So we're going to have a little fun now. And when Becky asked me to speak, I said, you know, all you people are going to hear from this point forward is get a job, get a job, get a job, get a job, get a job. It's going to be surrounding you. But I like to, as a creative person, my history has been as a creative person in advertising and marketing. I always like to turn the block around and say, well, how do you lose a job? Forget getting one. How do you lose it? And for me, what I've noticed is that you lose the job in the interview. This is how we came up with this title. How to lose the first job you never had, because you will lose the job in the interview. None of you, you're all incredibly smart, you're all highly educated. You will not lose the job in the job. That's not going to happen. You're going to lose it in the interview. So I'm going to spend the first couple of minutes very quickly just confirming for you some good ways to lose the job. All right, that's what we're going to focus on first. So if, John, you could start.
Yip, 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 yeah. Sha-na-na-na, sha-na-na-na-na, ah-doo, sha-na-na-na, sha-na-na-na-na, ah-doo, sha-na-na-na, sha-na-na-na-na, ah-doo, sha-na-na-na, sha-na-na-na-na, ah, yip, 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 bum, 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 get a job. Sha-na-na-na, sha-na-na-na-na, ah-doo, sha-na-na-na, kiss me out of my dirty crying, get a job. Sha-na-na-na, sha-na-na-na.
All right, so that sets the tone. All right, so first of all, if you want to lose the first job you never got, get really freaked out. Start now. Memorize all the statistics. Read all of that. Believe truly and deeply in the notion that in this economy, you are not going to find a job. The unemployment rate of 20 to 24-year-olds reached a staggering 16% in 2009 and continues to climb, so just dwell on it. All right? Second way, never, ever leave your dorm. All right? This is really important because you've got to focus on only job boards. Because if it's not on Monster, it doesn't exist. All right? That's absolutely true. Number 3, and this is so important, blend in. Blend in, do everything you can to imitate what everyone else is doing because 6 million job seekers cannot be wrong. Very important, blend in. The surefire way to lose your dream job, that's in the interview. Now, I would say the quickest way to do that, show up late. All right? And it doesn't have to be 15 minutes. You can do it in 5. But show up late, definitely. Forget your resume. And then when I ask for it, or when they ask for it, say, oh, I think I sent that to you. Or take it out, it's all folded up somewhere, take it out and unfold it, all right? Don't do any homework, don't know anything about the company. And you know, when you do have questions, ask like, so what do you guys do? Who's your competition? Do you like what you do? Those are all very off-putting, so those will work beautifully. Just in general, be clueless. And I always say, be comfortable, show up in like your favorite jeans. All right? It's guaranteed to work.
Can you repeat the question?
Rate on a scale of 1 to 5 where you think you're...
5. Do you guys work with DOS?
Do we get free soda?
Do we have to wear undershirts?
Is there any video game development here?
Define applicable.
Do you check references?
We do.
I would like to cross off a name
I
then.
think this is going really well, right?
Take the feet off the desk, please.
Right, of course.
You're not even wearing
Who
socks.
is this? She's hot.
It's my daughter.
How old is she?
Number 5, and I call this seal the no deal. Remember, don't do follow-ups. I mean, if you're risking getting a job, maybe send an email. Don't send it on time, and then never send a handwritten note. Don't do that, because that really shows you care. It shows you want it, you know. And then when you do write it, if you do write the handwritten note, use like words like love a lot. I loved what you do. I loved what you said. You know, love everything. That's a good way to do it. I love marketing, and I'd love to get good at it. Things like that. 6.
I don't know if anyone's ever told you this before, but you have beautiful eyes. I just really
I'm sorry, I
need this
didn't...
job. If the job doesn't work out, would you be open to being Facebook friends?
Number 6. Go back to number 1. So if you're working at this and nothing's happening, go back to number 1 and review all those statistics and keep talking about all the negativity, and then take every rejection you get, please take it personally. It's all personal. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's about you. And last, but certainly not least,
She didn't even look at my resume.
3 o'clock, whoa, don't be a quitter, honey. 3 o'clock, whoa, you'll do it better, baby. 3 o'clock, whoa.
Number 7, internship. You say in the interview, even if they offer you something, say, well, we don't have something full-time, but we have something that could get you into the department, get you really firmly grounded and get you going. Say, no, you know what? My parents will kill me. They just spent a fortune on my education, and I have to get a paycheck. I have to get that job. And then that should do it. Those are my 7. I feel like if you stick to those, that'll work for you. All right, so I like this. You're in luck. We have an opening for low man on the totem pole. The totem pole. So enough with the fun, though. So now it's time to get serious. So I do that tongue-in-cheek, but I don't, because I interview so many. First of all, I can't tell you how many parents call me. Big mistake. Big mistake. If you can't get your act together to call someone, and fine to reference your parents, but I can't tell you how many parents call me to see their graduating students. I can't tell you how many students come in and see me who do all those things I had up there. Those were personally inspired from actual real events. So that should make you feel good, though, because the truth of the matter is you will all get jobs. All of you. Every one of you, I can tell. There's a job out there with your name on it. You're simply on the road to the job. And so the mission is to treat it like anything else. You are all at a school that teaches you how to plan and how to have a mission and how to execute. So use all the skills you've developed in the past 4 years. And what we're going to talk about moving forward now is how do you do it. And I'm going to do my piece quickly because, as I said, I've got the intelligentsia of the city of Boston here, so I want to move on to them. But I have quick 5, I call them the 5 Ps, and I'm going to touch on each one, and then our team is going to get into them. Number one is I call it be positioned. That's the first P. Position yourself. And I'll use myself as an example, and I could use some others, but to keep it quick, this is really all about who are you? You know, there's a C. You started it today when you talked about who you are and what do you bring to the team. Who are you? What are your skills? And how do you want to talk about yourself? And I find personally that it's as important to know what you hate and what you're no good at as to what you love, so that you don't grab a job to get a job and find out it's not a good fit. So first thing, position yourself. Be positioned. Second thing is be prepared. Third thing, be polished. Fourth, be persistent. I can't say that enough. Because for you, you're the center of your universe, and your job is, but you're dealing with people who you're one tiny speck in a huge day that they're having. So I would say careful persistence is very important. And last, be people-centric. You know, job boards are great, email is great, you know, Google is great, but learn to come out of your college mentality and start being a people person. So if you can, just go to the next slide for me, John. You know, when you start to figure out brand you, say, what do I want to be? Who am I? Be distinct. My entire resume, I had a website, I had a resume. I'm not talking about when I was in college, because we didn't have the internet when I was in college. I'm going to be very candid with you, but as I got a little older and was job hunting, I have always positioned myself as the ultimate left brain, right brain thinker. So my website, you clicked into the left side of the brain, and I had those skills lined up and what I had done on that side of my brain. I had my right skills lined up. When someone said to me, describe your strengths, that's what I talked about. I developed myself as a brand, and that's ideally what you guys have to start thinking about. Who am I and how do I differentiate myself? How do I be distinct? No one's ever said this to me in my lifetime. My family raised me as be a leader, be a leader. I'm going to tell you, be a follower for a while. In the world of social media, that has become, and we're going to cover that has become so important. So when I say be a follower, you can start following companies you care about and that you really want to work with on LinkedIn. You can start to follow them, set up your RSS feeds to start to get an alert every time a company you care about sneezes. You can do things like join the ad club. And today, I'm giving everyone who was here today, even the people who didn't have their business cards, everyone's going to get a membership to the ad club. So you'll get discount education, you'll get discount to all the events, you'll come to the networking, you'll sign up for the newsletter, so it'll start to ingrain you into doing that. So these are, you know, set the privacy dial to high on Facebook and keep that just for your friends. Stop it already. I have a daughter who's a junior at Roanoke College in Virginia, and I call her, I go, would you stop that? Get that off there, you know? You have to turn that dial up to high and get off it. That does you no good. You know, later on down the road, mine Facebook is almost 100% business, and I keep it that way. An occasional teenager will sneak onto it, but get your LinkedIn profile polished like mad, because everyone now, and you're going to hear it, looks at that. And then, you know, my last one, and while you're looking for a job, find your passion. I can't say that enough times. While you're looking for your job, find your passion, because your passion will lead you to a job. And one of the things you can do, which really impresses people, and you know, you're all way more sophisticated than a lot of the older people you're going to be talking to. So when you say, my passion is, and there seems to be a fashion table over here, but if you say, my dream is to be in retailing, and my passion is fashion, that rhymes, that's good. And here's my blog. I have a blog, here's what I write about, here's what I care about, here are my followers. Then you're already kind of legitimized, you know? So while you're looking for your job, find your passion, and it'll lead there as well. Be prepared, and I have a hashtag before that. Start following the right people on Twitter. start having a voice on Twitter so people start to follow you, that you'd be amazed at the circles that especially in Boston, when you start to follow the right people, it's a small group of powerful people. So that's a great thing to do. I'm saying you can't be experienced, but you can be excellent. No one expects when they look at your resume to see you having run a company. But you can have areas of excellence, and it could be way down on the bottom. The first place I go to on a resume, and you're going to have different places, at the very bottom, what have you done? Were you on the swim team? Did you do a lot of charity work? Did you have a passion, with children at a school? That's what I care about, because everyone fluffs. When you're in college, the whole top is fluff, basically, unless you're one of these kids that can put their GPA up there. But the rest of it, you want to find someone who was like John. He had his resume, and he was captain of the swim team. I was like, that's my boy. That's what I want to see. It shows so much discipline, and it's proven to be absolutely right. He's disciplined. He's on time. He's a doer. So I would say, play that up on the resume. Know the company, but know the category. So if you're interviewing at TJX, do your homework on TJX, but know the category. Be able to talk intelligently about what's happening in discount retailing in general, so that they know you can think beyond that immediate job interview. And then my very last one is, there are so many job boards. The job boards do have some cool apps now where companies can find you, where you can post your interests. So this job I'm looking for, they can alert you to them. It is much easier now than it was in the past. So last one, I think, be polished. I beg of you, be polished. I've had people come in 10 minutes late, dressed kind of askew, and they say, I'm so sorry I'm late, I couldn't find it. Well, that just says to me, you couldn't find it. This has been on your calendar for 2 weeks. You've got a smartphone. Don't be late. And when you walk in, dress as you want to be considered. So if you're interviewing to be in a funky department at some funky, publishing place, dress funky. If you're interviewing at Deloitte, don't dress funky. They're not funky people. Trust me, I know that, although they're lovely people. So I would, dress how you want to reflect. And, back to resume, business card, job title, a lot of young people, and I've seen it a few times now, and I love it, create a job title for themselves. It's like, and it can tie into your passion. I'm trying to think of an example of what a good... Social media maven, thank you. See? Swimmer. Social media maven. That's a fun thing. If you have a big passion for social media, make that your title on your business card. Why not?
John, that's actually one of our alums.
Is it?
That's Margolis.
Oh, that's funny.
Social media maven.
It's a good one. All of that reflects on you. Be persistent. We talked about this. Volunteer for things. There's no better way. If you're following Deloitte and you see that their big effort is cleaning up a park in a school somewhere, join them. Say, can I participate in this volunteer opportunity? And you'll meet more people that way. It's incredible. Share media insights and use the phone. My big thing is every once in a while you have to pick up the phone. And I think this generation hates the phone. Am I right or am I wrong? I see it in my own office. I said, she didn't return my email. She didn't return my email. And I texted her and she didn't return that either. I go, did you pick up the phone? Call her. Call her. That's so important. And I think depending on your level of fear, you can call at a time where you can leave a very nice polished voicemail and prepare what you're going to leave on the voicemail. And then very last, I believe this is the last slide, right? Yep. Be a people person. And never let your cell phone ring during a presentation. That's very bad. I apologize. Bad. That was actually one of the videos I watched. The girl's cell phone kept ringing. befriend the admin. If you've got someone, I cannot stress that enough. I've been in business development my whole life. When you're trying to get in to see someone, your gut reaction is to kind of try and blow through the admin. And she'll say to you something like, oh, Mary's not here and she's not going to be in today afternoon. Always say, well, I'm hoping you can help me. Engage them. They're your age typically. They've been through it typically. And they're there to help, and they want to help. And 99% of them are nice. Then there's that other 1%, but you'll deal with that. While you're job hunting, take classes, because you're going to meet people who care about what you care about, and they may be further down the road, and they'll connect you to it. If you took a social media class and something, connected to that, and you met someone, you can bond that way and have good new connections. Find people with complementary skills. For example, if you say a website, I have no clue where to begin with the website. And if you're a good writer, find someone who can build the website but can't write. And then partner. And you'll come out with a brilliant piece, and you'll both be that much further down the road. It's how ad agencies function daily. We find complementary skill sets. And then last, but certainly not least, create a network or a support group. Have a friend that you call, if it's every day or at least once a week, and say, what did you do this week to further your search? What did you do? Use your family. Your family, and a lot of my children, I'm still working on it, don't use me for connections. It's ridiculous. Use your parents for connections. A lot of them have them, believe it or not. A lot of your parents have connections. And even if it might be something you're not completely interested in, it gives you good practice in interview. So those are that's my summary. So what we have now is we're going to turn it over to the panel of experts. And I'm going to start with Dan Lyons, and I have a brief bio so you'll all know the people that you're sitting in front of and reach back out to them at some point. We have Dan Lyons. Dan is the Senior Vice President and Managing Director of HR at Allen & Gerritsen. Dan is responsible for overseeing all HR functions of the agency and is tasked with the goal of helping to fuel the agency growth and resolving organizational issues. Prior to joining A&G in 2008, he spent 12 plus years in corporate America in a variety of HR generalist capacities for Johnson & Johnson, G-Tech, A.T. Cross, and Dunkin' Brands. So welcome. Thank you for being here. Next, we have Elizabeth Young in the middle here from Digitas. Elizabeth Young is a recruiting manager at Digitas with oversight of the Boston and Detroit office. She's responsible for managing a team of 7 and recruiting senior-level marketing and strategy talent nationally. Elizabeth has been over 10 years on both the client and the agency side, recruiting management experience, specializing in sales and marketing. She received her bachelor's degree from Syracuse in early childhood education. See, so you never know where you're going to... That's actually a great background for the job you're in. Childhood education. And last but absolute not least is John Wolfarth from Mullen. As Director of Digital Operations at Mullen, John combines his creative skills, multi-channel perspective, and digital experience to integrate Mullen's digital capabilities into all aspects of the organization. That expertise has resulted in award-winning work for General Motors, the U.S. Department of Defense, National Grid, and Virgin Money. Prior to joining Mullen in 2001, John was the Regional Creative Director for Zentropy Partners, a division of McCann Erickson, and Creative Director for Hill Holiday Interactive. So please give a warm welcome to these three. All right, so we have put together a list of questions. Somewhere, here they are. That we thought, and then what we'll do is we're going to open it up. So I thought maybe what we could do is just start up this first section called Getting the Interview. So I would ask, and maybe, John, we'll start down at your end and then work up. In getting the interview, what are some of the really unique candidates that you've seen that you can remember that got your attention, and how did they do it?
You know, it's interesting. I've been at this game for a long time. As Kathy indicated, the internet wasn't around when I started in this business, and it literally had to use the phone or to write people. And while the digital medium is so accessible, and it is a very immediate way for you to get in touch with people. I've actually had people send me things. They will, to Kathy's point about developing their brand, I manage a creative and production team. So the folks that I'm typically responsible for hiring have some sort of a craft or an artistic skill. And when somebody puts that to work to showcase their capabilities and draw me into their story, to separate themselves from the pile of email attachments, hundreds of which I get every week, it gives me an opportunity to hold something tactile, which is crazy because I manage a digital team, yet I love a piece of paper as much as the next person. And it lets me see how they think creatively. So they're not just presenting themselves in the polished cover letter or the note that Kathy described, which is very important, but I also get to see the skills that I'm looking for at use. So if you think about what it is that you're interested in doing and you can apply that to some form of a more distinctive means of introduction, something disruptive that could be an introduction, it would go a long way. There are limits to that, as there are to most things. It's not about dressing up as a clown and dropping off your resume. I've seen it done. It's not about, sending me a pair of socks and telling me that you're going to, quote, knock my socks off. That has actually happened. There's a border between kind of smart going towards clever, going towards creepy, going towards kitsch. Right. So you have to think about the organizations that you all are considering being a part of, and to Kathy's point, the role that you want to play in those organizations. And if there's ways in which you can differentiate yourself in order to get the interview, that would be great. I will say though, and this is not to underscore or undermine rather the credibility of the question, the best possible way that you can get in the door is by learning something about the organization and making a contact through somebody you know that works there. LinkedIn exists for that reason. And that is a note that comes from somebody that references someone I know or an event I attended or a cause that I care about in common is going to automatically get my attention before somebody that does to whom it may concern.
Yeah. So maybe Elizabeth and Dan, you could follow up on that. So LinkedIn, you all have LinkedIn accounts?
Yes.
So would you say this is an important time for them to start to grow their connections on LinkedIn?
Oh,
Completely.
absolutely. I mean, that's it's really the best. I mean, in my perspective, it's the best professional networking tool out there on the web. I get emails I graduated from Syracuse. Every week I get 5 emails from students that are graduating Syracuse, that are interested in opportunities at Digitas, and I'm like, Syracuse, I went there, great, and they always get a response back from me. So I think LinkedIn is key.
You feel that way too?
I do. Can I just see a show of hands of how many people have Twitter accounts? In my opinion, I think Twitter is starting to surpass even LinkedIn. The old traditional ways of companies posting jobs on job boards, I don't want to say they're going to go away altogether because I think there's some value to that. But, our company, we probably get more candidate leads from following people on Twitter, having them follow us on Twitter, and then the offer that Kathy just offered to you guys, having a membership with the Ad Club, is huge. Because these networking events are even tenfold more, I think you're going to get a lot more further than using Twitter accounts when you're doing it just through networking and things like that. Because that's when you can really kind of establish those connections with people.
Now, you have to think too when you're listening to us, we're in the creative world. Everybody here is in the creative universe. So I think we tend to be just a step ahead of where a more traditional company would be. But I think what's nice about what you're hearing is that this is the trend, and I think we will all get there.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Yeah. You heard all 3 of these people reference alums. Everybody in this room goes to a great school, and there are alumni directors. I used to joke around and say, we ought to admit you, keep you for a day and a half, do a couple of lectures, a lunch, introduce you to a few alums, and that was really what it was all about. So make use of it.
Yeah, that's huge. And if you're job hunting here, there's so many strong, classy people currently employed in the area that everyone has a soft spot for their school, right? I'm a Mass College of Art alum, and when I get someone from there, I see them instantly. So don't forget that. That's very important.
LinkedIn is.
I was just gonna say that I definitely agree with the Twitter and LinkedIn and everything, and those are definitely great opportunities to find things, but it's also careful with some of the industries that are highly regulated still. and
Yeah,
there are
yeah.
limited opportunities
I
to
was,
do some of
yeah,
that.
I was actually going to mention that. A couple of the clients that I work with at the agency where I'm employed, one is a Fortune 100 financial services company, and the other is the U.S. Department of Defense. Both are crazy good places to work, but you're not going to see them on Twitter. And that doesn't mean Twitter is not a great platform. I think what's interesting about the three answers that you got to the question is, it goes back to what Kathy was saying. Think about the job you want and the personality of the organization that you want to be a part of, and begin positioning yourself to align with that. I've literally had people come in, and I don't want to jump ahead, but I've literally had people come in to interview for roles to be a graphic designer in a creative department, and they'll show up in a three-piece suit. And I feel bad for the person, and I don't display that in the interview, but just the lack of thought that went into trying to match. And again, fashion's an easy one to pick on, and I'm just using that as a rather blatant example. Back to the concept of even getting the interview to begin with. Think about what that organization does. Read all about it online and determine what the best point of entry might be. It can be through alumni, it can be through Twitter, it can be through LinkedIn, it can be through something perhaps more creative and expression and stunt-like, but it needs to match the organization, because then you're positioning yourself before you even get the interview as somebody that could really do well there.
Yeah. Anybody, you want to add anything to that?
Well, what I was saying about LinkedIn, the capabilities of that website is pretty spectacular, because it has this searching capability where you can really drill down on really specifics of what you're searching for. You know, you can look up alumni or schools, you can look up companies, you can look up geographic locations. So, you know, become very, very familiar with that website, because the capabilities of it, I think, are pretty impressive.
How many people are you seeing who have established, and there's a great book that I just finished prior to this, and it was called U 2.0, and it's Dan Schnaubel, who's a Boston guy, 27-year-old CEO. And one of the things he talked about and really believes firmly in is a website, having a website where someone can quickly see what your passions are, what your writing style is, your blogs, what your interests are, what your resume looks like, and what you look like. Do you see much of that?
I'm actually seeing candidates now that will actually email me a link to, like, it's a YouTube resume. So it's not a traditional piece of paper that they're emailing me as an attachment, but it's actually a YouTube video that they're producing. And they're just really, really creative in the way that they kind of describe their experiences. They put like little hyperlinks into it. So if I want to drill down into certain things, then they have all these different links to different YouTube videos. And that's how they're starting to do some of their resumes. And in my opinion, that's a very, very creative way of getting my attention.
But only do it if you're going to be really good at it.
Exactly.
Because you can go down in flames really quickly.
Absolutely.
And you're only halfway there.
Right.
You've seen that,
Yeah.
like a complete failure. Yeah.
Well, to Kathy's point before, it's good to have like some people that you can kind of talk to, show it to people, you know, like even your resume, show it to multiple people and get their opinions
Always
on
get opinions.
what's really, you know, what do you like, what do you not like, you know. Ultimately, it's this representation of you, so it has to be an accurate reflection of how you want people to view you. Sometimes you have to take some chances.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to another topic, let's talk a little bit about in the actual interview. So let's suppose they've done some things right, they've made right connections through LinkedIn, their resume looks good, now they have their moment and they're interviewing for a job, entry-level job, and typically, and this is going to change across the board, how many people would you be interviewing for an entry-level job?
How many candidates are going to come through before someone gets hired? Well, I do it in phases, to where I will, and I'm mostly looking for creative and production folks, so I will look at the resume and the body of work, however it's represented, site, whatever. Then I will typically have a quick conversation with someone on the phone. Then I will bring them in to meet with the respective people on the team, because as a hiring manager, what I don't want to do is clog the people in my team with folks that aren't necessarily prepared to meet with them. And I serve as a little bit of the gatekeeper in an interesting way. You know, we've talked a lot about positioning yourself, whether it's on paper, on video, or whatever in digital documentation. The phone call is there to screen out how well you can articulate yourself and answer a couple of questions. And if you're, you know, like this and like that and this and that, you're not coming in. Because if you can't keep up with the conversation on the phone, I'm not going to waste a half day of my time and 4 or 5 other people's time bringing you in to talk to other folks, because it presents you as just not having your act together.
Well, my fear would be that if someone said it's just a phone interview, I think
Oh my
maybe
God,
people
no.
don't realize how important that interview is.
It's never just a phone interview.
Yeah.
Right.
But to answer your question numerically, there can be a minimum at times, particularly for the folks coming out of school, 50 to 75 people that get their stuff through, and we'll narrow that down to probably half a dozen folks that we'll meet in person and make a choice from there.
And Elizabeth, Dan, you'd agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, so they get through that. Fabulous. Now they're in the interview. What can they do in the interview that, or what shouldn't they do, or what should they do that sets them apart, that makes them memorable in your head?
I mean, I think the most important thing, and a lot of times candidates coming in right out of school are sometimes shy, or they're not sure what questions to ask. You know, I think the best thing to do is always come prepared with specific questions that you really want to know the answers to. You know, so a lot of times people are researching and they'll, you know, see sort of like generic questions and they'll say, oh, that's good, you know, I'll ask that. But you guys are interviewing us as much as we're interviewing you. You know, so we want you to leave the interview, you know, thinking, I really want that job. I want to work there. They're a great company. So I think it's really important to also ask for the job at the end of the interview. You know, you want to, you know, let the people that you're meeting with know that you're excited, that you're interested, that you've got the right skill set, and that you would absolutely be the right candidate to hire. So never be afraid to ask a question, and you know, I think being prepared is probably the most important thing. And just in terms of what Kathy was talking about being late, I actually had a candidate come in, probably a more senior level candidate, who his first, and usually what we do at Digitas is we have people come in and meet with 4 or 5 people for about a half an hour each. And he was due to come in at 1 o'clock. It was 2 minutes before. I called down at reception and I said, you know, is the candidate here yet? And he wasn't. He was meeting with the EVP of the group. So in my head, I'm thinking, he sees the interview schedule, the people's titles, so they know who they're meeting with. And I went downstairs and I ran into the interviewer, and I looked at him and I just sort of had this blank stare on my face, and I'm thinking, the candidate's late. It's so important to be early, even if it's a half an hour early. I think it's probably one of the most important things in the interview is being on time.
I think it's important to make sure that the interview is actually a conversation.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, like, it shouldn't be me giving questions to you, you responding, I ask another question. Mm-hmm. It should really flow like a conversation, like you're networking at a you know, you're at a party with some friends, and it should be more of a conversation. I can't tell you how many people they don't make eye contact with you. They're not a little bit animated
Mm-hmm.
with their hands. I've interviewed so many people where they're having a conversation with my carpet, and I'm like, right. You know, my eyes are over here. You know, that happens quite a bit. And you know, it's good to research the company. It's good to come in, you know, prepared with questions, and they're not always questions about the company or the clients. It has to be, you know, questions that are important to you. I was so impressed with this one particular candidate that he was a Hispanic candidate, and he asked me, "Can you talk to me a little bit about what the diversity is at your company?" I thought that is a brilliant question, because that kind of proved to me that, you know, he was genuinely interested with working with people that were kind of like himself, and so he wanted to kind of understand what are the kind of people that work here. So it's important to kind of, you know, ask a variety of questions, talk about culture. Mm-hmm. Our advertising agency has a lot of like fun things in there, like a pool table and a putting greens and stuff like that. And I've had people that have asked me, how frequently do these things get used? Because it's one thing for a company to kind of have these really fun things to have in there, but if they're there just for show, that speaks volumes about a culture,
Well, I think the other thing, during the interview is that if we're sensing that we really like the person that we're meeting with, and that, because you sort of know in the interview whether or not you're going to hire
It's
the
a first
person or
date.
not.
It's a first date.
It's like
No, think about it. You know.
Right.
You know, and you know when you want to get the hell out of there, too.
Right. I usually
Don't fake the cell phone call from a friend. Garbage. You'll never move forward in that happens.
But you're so funny. But usually what I do is I'll bring people up to the 18th floor, which is the fun floor. So we were talking a little bit earlier. We've got a tap room up there that actually does open at 4 o'clock on Thursday and Friday. There's a pool table, a ping pong table. It's a fun, people see that and they're like, I really want to work here. So it's that sort of extra step, the extra sell to close the candidates that we want to hire. So
Yeah, one thing I'll add, and I know Kathy's got a bunch of other questions. Here's a dirty little secret, okay? Some of the people that you would meet with won't have put the preparation into the interview that you will. So you're going to sit in front of somebody. You know what? I'm sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. Wait, I know your resume is here somewhere. So okay, so you want to be. You have to be on. You make them look smart by leading the questioning and diving into the conversation and being confident with who you are. You've completely then, believe it or not, put the interviewer at ease. And suddenly he or she is like, okay, this one gets it. I'm not going to look like an idiot. And it's not turning the tables, but it goes back to what we were saying about you're being interviewed as much as you're interviewing. And if you come in prepared with the questions and things that you want to learn about, you relieve the pressure from the person who, they might literally have 5 minutes earlier gotten off the phone call with a client who was screaming at them. And maybe they didn't have 10 minutes to read and to prep, even though they knew you were coming. If you help to put them at ease by being prepared yourself, it's going to go a long way towards instilling in them the confidence that you can get the job done.
Right.
So let's say now you get it down to some of the core few that are coming back. I have found in even the small amount of interviewing we do, it's like buying a home. You've seen 7 houses, and you start, oh, wait a minute, which girl was that? When you look house hunt, you put the garage on the other house and the attic from the one else, and you've created this. You'll say, was she the girl who was the one who came from Long Island, or her father? So how do you follow up effectively after you've had a good interview? You know it was a good interview and you're feeling very optimistic. What can they do to sort of put a kind of a nice close and make themselves memorable again? And then how do you, I said be persistent. How do you do that?
I think it's important for, ask the person that, is doing the interviewing, what are the next steps going to look like? Or, how soon could I expect to hear back from you, and things like that. So, and which would you prefer? Do you want me to send you an email? Would you prefer a telephone call? Because people have different preferences. I get thousands of emails daily. It's ridiculous. So it's, it's good to kind of ask those questions.
And always make sure to ask the people that you meet with for their business cards so that you can follow up. A lot of times, though, sometimes in our world, it's a little bonkers. So if people don't have business cards, candidates usually will reach out to the recruiter, to get the person's.
We actually will. We will provide on the. I call it the itinerary, but we will provide on the list of people that are being interviewed the name, the title, and the email. So it prevents that info gap. Yeah.
That's practice.
Free gift with purchase. But the other thing that I would say is, and Dan would say, it's like, if you ask when and how to best follow up, you better do it. I mean, don't make that effort and then not act on it. Oh, I got so busy. Guess what? Everybody's busy. It shows a sense that something is going to be ultimately really important to you. There is a capacity for some candidates to kind of inquire. If somebody says, oh, we're still interviewing candidates, it's going to be a couple of weeks, we'll let you know. Give them the time to let you know. If you haven't heard something in 3 to 4 weeks, chances are you may not be moving forward. Don't take it personally, but drop a note to the person that told you they needed some time and say, as you mentioned,
I'm following up.
I'm following up. I'm sure you've met with a bunch of candidates. I still think I'm super qualified and would love to work there. Don't use love, but you know, where do things stand? And that's just a nice way of being able to provide some sense of
Closure.
Iterative,
I
communication.
had someone who sent a link to an article about a week and a half after her interview on a subject that was pertinent to something we'd been talking about, which was controlling costs with events, and she had found something very specific, and she emailed it to me and said, I thought you would enjoy reading this article,
Yeah,
and I
fantastic.
thought,
Yeah, that's a good one.
smart, yeah.
And keep in mind, telephones are very, high tech these days. So caller ID, like I've had candidates, I'm not exaggerating, they called and like hung up like 28 times, and that's, that's a little overkill. Like you can call and leave a message, and and I'm talking within like a 15-minute period of time. So chances are that would be a pretty good indicator that I'm in a meeting, or I will get back to you, I promise, but no need to call.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of hiring managers or recruiters that will say that they'll follow up and they don't. And sometimes it can be frustrating. I mean, I know if I was on the other side, I would absolutely want someone to follow up with me, regardless of the outcome. So I do follow up with every single person that comes in to interview to let them know, why they weren't a fit. And I try to give as much honest feedback as possible so that it helps you, with the next interview or the next, job that you get. And sometimes recruiters are afraid to do that. They don't want to really tell you that, they don't want to give you the feedback. They want to say, well, we decided to move forward with someone else. And you don't really know why. So we try and do that on our end so that you know.
I had something good to say. And now I lost it.
Do you think it's bad to press them on it? If somebody says to you, we've moved on with another candidate, and they don't really kind of give you the other information, would you recommend saying, can you give me some feedback?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not what I thought about, but true story. So a candidate applied for a creative role at the agency where I work now. Did not have the skills that we were looking for in the role. We have an in-house recruiter who helps to facilitate the distribution of pieces, the right candidates to the right hiring manager. I reviewed this candidate's creative portfolio, provided the feedback to the recruiter, who then provided it back to the candidate in a very polite but clear way. And about 10 or 11 days went by, and then the recruiter got a note back from the candidate who chose to CC the CEO of our organization and explain how he couldn't believe that we weren't interested in a talent like him, and how the feedback that he had received from some creative director was so misguided. I was astounded to the point where I actually let other people know in my business if this particular candidate was looking for roles within the Boston area to stay away. So you can ask for the feedback, but you need to be able to accept it, because the person that gives it to you may or may not be able to articulate it the way that you want to hear it, but if you ask for it, take it and move on.
Yeah. We have a couple of minutes left, so if we want to take some questions from our patient audience.
I guess if you've gone to a company before and make it to the final round of interviews, how do you approach if you'd like to apply to that company again? If you make it to interviews again, do you bring up the fact that you've been interviewed before? How do you approach that?
Well, we would know. We would definitely know. We tend to sometimes bring in candidates for specific roles and meet with them and say, this person was interviewing for marketing, but we think they're better fit for account planning, and so we tend to share candidates and make sure that people are finding the right homes. But we have these things called applicant tracking systems. And we tend to, collect feedback, and have notes in there so that, because that happens a lot with us, where we'll meet with someone, actually someone in our Atlanta office right now interviewed about a year ago, thought they were a great fit. They weren't right for the open role that we had, but we have something now. So we went back and we reached out to this person, and they're coming back in, so.
But honesty, I think, is always the best policy.
Oh, yeah.
It actually shows that you're persistent. You would really like to work in that organization. Granted, it also lets them know that, oh, I could go and to ask the hiring manager why you may not have gotten a particular role, but if you presented yourself well, you made it through to the final thing, chances are you're going to succeed at some point.
And a lot of times what happens, we meet with a lot of entry-level candidates that we really, really like, and sometimes we don't have enough jobs. Do you know what I mean? So, there's so much ebb and flow in our world with our business and clients and all that good stuff, that if we've got a lot of people that we met with, 6 months go by and we have all these new openings, we'll say, oh, remember so-and-so, remember this person, and then, we'll call and engage and see if they're still available, so.
This goes back to what Kathy was saying before about networking. Like, just because you're interviewing with a company, like, this is a great way to kind of like make some connections with people. Like, go to different events and, kind of get their business card, have conversations with them. If you run into somebody that you interviewed at a networking event, go up and chat with them. Even if you didn't get selected for the job, like, have the confidence in yourself to still kind of have that conversation with the folks, because to your point, our company does it all the time. Like, we might have said no to a person, or we didn't give them the job because it wasn't the right role for them, but a year and a half from now, it's like, do you remember that guy Joel? He would be perfect for this role. And then we would kind of regroup with him and see, give him a call and say, what are you doing?
I've hired people over a year after I've met them.
Yeah.
Happens a lot.
And this is an exaggerated example, but the Boston Chamber of Commerce every Christmas has the holiday party of the city, and the power players of the city show up. It's the Joe Grimaldis of the world. It's the head of Bank of America. And for 2 hours you have them captive and tipsy at the top of the stateroom. And we were standing in a circle, very influential people, and a young student came up and had their business card and said, Kathy, I've been trying to get an introduction to you, introduce himself, and then he went around and made his little introductions to everyone, and I think 4 or 5 people exchanged cards with him, like senior people, and he followed up with all of them. So you can't underestimate, like, we have our women's leadership event, come out to it. You'll be put at a table with women you haven't met yet, you'll meet them, and then you'll go home, you'll put them on your LinkedIn, and it grows and grows, it becomes viral. It's so important.
Thank you.
Kathy.
Oh, okay, Kathy, maybe you pick.
I think you hit your hand up first.
Okay, I have a question. Do you recommend the resume to capture everything, the jobs that we have worked in, or just to be as short as possible, or 1 page long that doesn't capture everything, even for every single jobs that we have worked in before?
I'm trying to understand the question in the sense of...
1 page resume?
Yeah, no, it depends. I mean, depending on where you are in your career, if this is essentially your first or even your second professional, full-time, non-internship / academic credit role, if your resume is more than a single page, you're going on a little bit far about yourself. 3, 5, 7 years into your career, it can begin to tip over to a second page. Anything really, in my opinion, anything longer than that, I get the gist of it looking at something really, really quickly. And all the stuff that you guys have read and all the things you know about bullets and action words and things to keep it really tight and results and all that kind of stuff, all of that is true, because it really is. I mean, think about the way that we all read, particularly now when we're reading so much online and you're skimming things. Anything that goes off in kind of too much detail can bog somebody down. You really want to do what you need to do and say it and then get out of there.
Yeah. If I see a resume that's longer than 3 pages,
especially at this point.
At this point. Oh gosh.
At this, honestly, I mean, again, I don't know the professional background for any of you, but I would be susceptible if any of you had a resume that was more than a page and a half tops. And maybe some of you have worked and you've come back to school, or you're working in conjunction with being in school and you've got some significant responsibilities, and that should be highlighted. But don't go on and on and on. Save that for the conversation when you really have an opportunity to connect with somebody and tell your story in response to what their particular need is.
So the agency that I work for is significantly smaller than the agency that these two work for. So oftentimes when you are trying to apply for a company that is much smaller, you're expected to wear a lot more hats. You have to do a lot more stuff. So sometimes it's not always the glamorous stuff. Sometimes you have to like roll your sleeves up and do some of the dirty work. So oftentimes people say to me, you know, what's your opinion if I was like a wait staff person? Or to your point, when you were like on a swim team, like the captain of the swim team, that kind of stuff shows me leadership qualities. A person that's worked on a wait staff shows me that's a person that can work in a fast-paced environment. They're not afraid to roll their sleeves up. So I actually like that kind of stuff. Not everybody agrees with me with that, but you know, that kind of stuff appeals to me when I'm looking at
rather than
candidates.
saying, you know, if you were a waitress, don't say, I was responsible for customer satisfaction in multiple, you know, okay, you were a waitress, I get it. Yeah, that you can sniff out in a heartbeat.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, so I think we have time for one more question. I hate to, because they'll be available afterwards, so there's plenty of time to get them.
What if you are interested in a company and you see more than one position that you're interested in applying to? Should you choose one or should you apply to both?
That's a good question.
It's a really good question.
Again, sort of goes back to the applicant tracking system. If you apply to one position, or two positions, you know, we can see that. You know, once you're in our system, you're in our system for life. You're not going anywhere. And we track all of the history in there. So sometimes people will apply to specific, one position, and we'll say, oh, that person's great, but they're a better fit for this other position. And then, you know, we'll reach out. But I guess it really...
I have slightly less systematic response, but it's going to say a bit of the same thing.
Digitas loves process.
They're good at it. They're a fantastic organization. No, seriously, in large part because of that. In a weird way, I would actually try to do a little bit of research on the organization and try to find, whether through LinkedIn or Alumni Network or whatever else, somebody that you could get an opinion from. I would actually suggest that you have a preference for the one that you really think you want, and pursue that. Once you're then in the system and you have an opportunity to perhaps have a conversation with a recruiter or an HR specialist, you can then mention, I noticed this other role. If I don't proceed with the role that I'm in, this one sounded interesting to me. How would you recommend I go about making my candidacy known, as opposed to just looking like you're spraying the wall with your resume, showing a certain amount of decisiveness, and then using the opportunity once you do get an interview or a phone call or something to inquire would be a good way to go about doing it.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could give a round of applause. What I'm going to ask everyone who's here tonight is just to put your email on this piece of paper, and then I'm going to email you the membership information. So this is your chance to start networking with some incredible companies. And then the next piece is just to remember, like we all said, you will get a job. And it's going to have to be a little bit of a roller coaster ride, but you will all find jobs and you will all live happily ever after. So we have a little closing video today.
So it's Bill and Walter, eh?
Hello? What? I got it. I got the job? Wow, really? You mean you liked my resume? And the interview was okay? Really? Great! I'll see you tomorrow, 9 o'clock sharp. Thanks a lot. Bye, Dad.
Yip, 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 Josh.
So thank you all.